back, relax, and maybe get yourself a snack. Me and you gonna have a little chat about books. Hi guys! So I am here today to do my July wrap up. I managed to get through a fair few books in July, which is quite surprising to me because I actually had a pretty bad reading month at the start. It was the end half of the month that actually things started to get a lot easier and better, and I found some better books. So I'm going to run through everything I read. You'll notice that I haven't reviewed everything yet. That is because for the SBFBO books I will try and do bulk reviews of the 5 that I read in a month, although I didn't quite manage 5 this month, but next month I should. Basically, reviews are coming. They will be coming soon. Also, I got new glasses and they're super glary, as you guys can probably see, so I'm trying to face this way so you don't get huge glasses glare. But I really like them, so, you know, you'll have to deal with it. Let's get on to all the books. I'm going to go from lowest to highest, and let's get started. The first one I read was a self-published fantasy blog-off one, which is Chameleon Assassin. This one was probably an okay book for other people, but because I don't read an awful lot of urban fantasy, it wasn't really my thing, and I felt like because it was a self-published book, it didn't necessarily have all the editing and everything that I felt it needed to be a really strong read. I'll go into more detail about this when I talk about it in a full review, but for now I gave it a 2 stars. The next one I read is Keeper, which is by Andrea Gillies. This one I gave a 2.5 stars, although I'm a bit unsure. I think it's like a 2.25. I actually did a live show with Eleanor just a few days ago talking about this book and the other book that we read for our Welcome Book Prize project, so I will put a link to that live show and you can go and watch our thoughts there. We did talk a lot more in detail about this book and the other one for the Welcome Book Prize, so I won't go into a full review for this because I think I've already basically reviewed it there in a lot more detail than usual, so go and check that out and let me know what you think. I do think it's an interesting topic. It deals with Alzheimer's, but I think it could have been handled better. So go and watch that and you'll see why. The next one I read is one I was slightly disappointed, well, quite disappointed by, but I kind of thought maybe it wouldn't be my thing as well when I picked it up, and that is Too Like the Lightning, which I'm just going to put a picture up because I've actually donated my copy to a friend. So this is by Ada Palmer. It's a book that so many people loved. It's the first in a duology, and I just didn't get along with it. I had real difficulty trying to get into this story and trying to connect to this story. I will be reviewing this, so if it's not already up then look out for it very soon and I'll talk about more why. But I don't know what it was about this, it just did not really click with me and I felt like there was so much potential that just never played out. So I gave this one a 2.75 stars. I'm going to allow myself that because there were some good things, but it was also kind of just not great overall. So there are a few bad books this month. Moving on to the ones I actually did enjoy. The first one is called Princess of Zunino. This was an SBFBO book too, and I gave this a 3 stars. It's a sort of science fiction fantasy crossover. It's set on an alien planet. I'll go into a bit more detail when I review it, but suffice it to say it's largely sexually dominated and it's a matriarchal society of aliens in space. It's a bit weird, but it had some really interesting points and I was very into the story when I was reading it, but on thinking about it, it didn't really leave me with too much. So I gave it 3 stars. I'll be reviewing it more in my full SBFBO video, which will be coming very soon. The next one I read also got 3 stars, and that is this tiny little book called 9 Parts Bluster and Other Stories by AZ Anthony. This book was not necessarily for the faint of heart. It is kind of bloody in some places, kind of gory, and it feels like 4 little teaser stories which are the setup for a world that this author is creating. I definitely enjoyed each of the stories on their own, and the first and the fourth in particular joined together and had very similar characters, so I liked that a lot because they mixed together, and the middle 2 not as much. But I really enjoyed it. I do think it's a fun little collection and it's well written, so if you are interested in kind of horror stories that are very short, maybe give this a try, because I would say it blends horror and fantasy quite nicely. It's not too scary and bloody, but it's definitely got the edge. And I will definitely be on the lookout for when his novel comes out, because I have a feeling he would be really good in long form, and these are just the beginning. So I'll definitely be looking out for novel length work from him, and I would recommend this. I gave it 3 stars. Next up, I read Muroto, which is by L.L. McNeil. This book is one I actually did really enjoy, and it is a debut by the author. I gave this a 3.5 stars because it's a good kind of classic blend of fantasy and twists on tropes. It's definitely fun. It's definitely a story that I think a lot of people would like. It has dragons, it has airships and pirates and action, and there's a lot going on. I think the author really introduces a lot of different races, and it makes it a pretty interesting story. It's very fast paced, it's very fun, very easy to get through, and I'll be talking about this more in a full review very soon, but suffice it to say I did definitely enjoy it, and if you're looking for a great little fantasy, especially a debut one, this is a really good one to pick up. Do let me know if you end up doing that. And then luckily I had quite a few 4 stars as well this month. So the first of those was this one, They Can't Kill Us All by Wesley Lowery. This book did take me basically the whole month to read, even though it is very short, because I'm not great when it comes to quite factually heavy non-fiction, and this is quite factually heavy. It's written by a reporter about the Black Lives Matter movement and kind of how it sparked and everything that led up to it and everything that kind of keeps the momentum of it going. It's definitely a very political and factual book at times, but I felt like it was very readable too. I just had to be in the right mindset. So I ended up giving this 4 stars overall, and I definitely would recommend this if you're interested in finding a bit more out about the movement. But I will say it is quite beginner level. I don't feel like it went too much into detail, so you probably, if you already know stuff about the movement, you probably don't need to read this, but if you don't really know an awful lot about it, or if you're from a different country to America like me, maybe worth picking this one up and giving it a try, so I gave it 4 stars. Another one that got 4 stars from me, and that I also talked about in that same live show with Eleanor, is 3 Letter Plague by Johnny Steinberg. This was my Welcome Book Prize book for this month, and I definitely enjoyed this one. It deals with AIDS and it deals with HIV in Africa, South Africa, and it was a really, really well told story, very informative, very interesting, and very anecdotal as well, so I liked it a lot, and I think there's a lot to be gained from reading it. So I would definitely recommend this, and if you want to hear more of my thoughts on this specifically, check out that live show. Next up, I read Blackwing by Ed McDonald. This one is new out this month, so luckily squeezed it in just at the end, just around the time it was actually being released. I actually did really enjoy this. There were moments where I was a little bit unsure about it because it is quite military heavy, and I'm not a huge military fan, but it's also got some really interesting themes. It follows a captain who goes into the misery to hunt down criminals, but when he comes back he finds out that the engine he and all his people who live in his land have been relying on to keep the enemy at bay may not be working so well, and it kind of stems from there. He's challenged quite a lot and he has to get in quite a few little pickles to try and figure out how they're gonna fix or save or make it work, and etc. I gave it 4 stars in the end. The next one I read was The Water Knife by Paolo Bacigalupi, and this one was kind of a surprise one. It was very last minute for me. I've had it on my TBR for a while, but I joined a book club in the month of July, and they were actually reading this book for their book of the month, and luckily I had it, so I joined in. And I really enjoyed it actually. I found it a very fast-paced dystopian story. It kind of took a little bit to build at the beginning, but once you were into it, it was really action-packed. It read as though it could be translated to screen really easily, so I could vividly imagine this as a thriller on the big screen in a cinema. It was very much like that. It's set in a world where water has become a commodity that people buy and sell at increasingly high rates, and people who live in the desert or extreme climes, because the world has got more extreme, basically they're screwed, and they have to resort to all sorts of nasty things to get the basic necessity of water. So it's a really, really interesting story. It revolves around 3 characters, and I found it a pretty fun one as well, so I gave this 4 stars too. Another one of the SPFBO books that I managed to read was The Heart of Stone by Bengali. This was my second Bengali book, but it was a standalone, so it's not set in his other world. I do think he's releasing some novellas in this world and maybe future books, but at the moment it's a standalone. And this follows a golem who gets roped into fighting in the human war and he hates it, but he also has a lot of emotions building within him, and a couple of other characters get involved too, and it becomes a great adventure story. It's a really, really fun one, filled with exciting action-packed moments and also some really sentimental, lovely moments. So I definitely would recommend this, and I gave it 4 stars too. Another one that I gave 4 stars to, you'll see there is a very strong 4-star theme in this month, and that one is Red Sister by Mark Lawrence. I picked this one up because I had it on audio, and I've been meaning to get around to it for a while and read another Mark Lawrence book, and I think this is definitely my favourite of his books so far. It's very dominated by female characters, which is probably why it's one of my favourites by him, and I really enjoyed it. It was so filled with fun and action and excitement and really good potential for future books in the series too. I think if you do like lady characters, then this is a series you may well want to check out, filled with some action-packed moments as well. So I definitely liked that a lot and gave it 4 stars too. And then a few that were series enders, and I managed to finish them this month, were Of Noble Family, which is by Mary Robinette Kowal. This is the 5th and final book in the Glamorous Histories series, which I've been reading for a while now, and I audiobooked this last one, so I don't have it in physical yet, although I will hopefully get it. And I really enjoyed it. I feel like this was a great kind of culmination of the series and the characters in the series. It definitely brought everything together and ended up on a nice note. It was a really interesting look at slavery and the discussion of slavery, and I really liked it as a whole. I thought it was a very well put together book, but also very exciting and interesting, and kind of just kept me guessing the whole way through. So that one also got 4 stars. And the final book that I read in the month of July, and that I also gave 4 stars to, is Tyrant's Throne by Sebastian de Castell. I have reviewed this one, so I'll put a link to that, and I definitely enjoyed this. It was a good culmination of the series, although I hope there might be more in this world soon, and I definitely enjoyed it because I think there were some really sentimental moments that actually made me a bit teary-eyed, and there were some moments where it was very action-packed and fun and feisty and witty and teasing, and it was just merriment, and I like that a lot. So I really enjoyed it, and I definitely would recommend the whole of the Greatcoat series as well. So that is everything I managed to get through in this month, and I'm pretty happy with the amount I read, considering the first half of the month I'd read like 2 books. So that was quite impressive second half of the month. I'm definitely looking forward to next month because actually I'm going to be away for a fair bit of it. I'm going to be away for a solid week in Finland, in Helsinki. I'm going to Worldcon, which is very soon, and I'm very excited about that. And then I'm also going to be away at 9 Worlds the weekend before, so I'm probably going to be pretty shattered by the end of it all, but I can't wait. It's going to be so much fun. But because of that, my reading might take a slight dip because I have a feeling I'm going to be doing a lot more socialising. But it should be good, and I will definitely keep you guys updated with what I read next month. And that is all for now. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these or what you thought of them. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon in my next video. Bye guys!
Thank you for watching my video today. Go pick up a book, then come back and chat with me again.